Anne runs with all her might, fleeing a wild boar, and does not understand how she ended up in this place, and even in the guise of a little girl. The day before, the girl read her favorite story about werewolves until late at night. Anne was so happy for her favorite characters that at some point she accidentally hit her head on the bed. The girl, not understanding how she ended up in the primeval forest, runs in the hope that her life will not end so quickly. Suddenly, a black wolf cub appears from the side, grabs the girl by the clothes, and jumps to the side. Saving a stranger from a wild boar, the wolf cub jumps straight into the dense bushes growing on the sides of the path. The werewolf transforms into human form and tells the girl that his name is Sean. The boy covers Anne's mouth and asks her not to make noise, because the danger in the form of a boar is still nearby. The girl is in a panic. If there is a werewolf in front of her, it means she has found herself in the world of animals, just like in her favorite book. Suddenly, an angry boar appears from the bushes. Sean grabs Anne by the hand and the children run on. Realizing that he can't run far with the girl, the boy takes out a strange whistle and blows it loudly and drawn out. Completely mesmerized, Anne notices that the boar has suddenly stopped and is no longer chasing them. The girl is so happy to be saved that she rushes at Sean, hugs him, and thanks him for saving him. But the boy fearfully asks him not to let go of his hands. Anne doesn't hear her savior's requests. For some reason, she really likes hugging the wolf cub. But suddenly the boy became strangely limp, and his senses fell to the ground. Suddenly, Joe the lion, the wolf cub's older brother, comes out of the bushes and says in a completely human voice that he has finally found Sean. Without allowing Anne to come to her senses, the lion notices that the girl is surprised and offers to go to his tribe to take part in procreation. Enough old Anne in the body of a little girl does not want to participate in the continuation of the line of werewolves and categorically refuses. Approaching the wolf cub, Joe shakes him, trying to bring him to his senses. But the boy is in no hurry to come to his senses. The silhouette in the bushes sarcastically remarks that Sean is fine. He's just pretending to attract attention. Dan, a young white werewolf lion, slowly emerges from the bushes. Anne cannot contain her emotions. The boy is incredibly handsome, especially since the girl has a strange weakness for blondes. Dan is rude to the girl, and the lion remarks with a laugh that if the boy behaves like this with females, he will remain lonely. The lion cub notices that he doesn't even understand what the girl is talking about. Anne retorts that the boy is too young to understand anything. The children continue to attack each other, and the lion laughs and tries to calm them down. After a couple of minutes, Joe gets tired of this squabble. He lets out a loud roar and orders the children to shut up. The beast tells Anne that most werewolves in the tribe are very friendly and invites the girl to join them, and then no one will hurt her. The lion continues to describe how prosperity, strength, democracy, and civilization reign in the tribe. But Anne asks the lion to stop. She understood everything perfectly. Dan proudly turns away and says to the side that there is no point in groping in front of the girl. If she doesn't want to, then let her stay here. Joe slaps the lion cub on the head and invites Anne to look at the tribe and then decide whether she wants to stay in it or not. Suddenly, the ground disappears from under Anne's feet. Everything around her begins to tremble, and a rumble is heard from afar. The girl asks in fear what it is. Lev says that these are wild rhinoceroses migrating, and Dan remarks that they cannot stay here for long. Dan helps throw Sean onto the lion's back, and the beast invites the girl to climb on him so they can quickly get to the tribe. The girl climbs onto the back of a lion. She does not want to be trampled by rhinoceroses. She decides to go with the werewolves, and if anything happens, she will be able to escape later. Turning to Dan, Anne arrogantly declares that she has no intention of being his friend. After a few minutes of running at high speed, the company stops in front of a nice village. Suddenly, a dagger flies past Joe at high speed. The girl is horrified, thinking that the village has been captured by enemies. On the threshold of one of the huts stands the beautiful Linda, Joe's partner, and reproachfully says that the werewolves have finally returned. Joe, not paying attention to Linda's antics, enthusiastically invites the girl to see who they brought. Seeing Anne, Linda runs up to her and begins to look at her with enthusiasm, saying that the girl is a wonderful little female. Noticing Dan leaving silently, Anne sadly notes that the boy looks very lonely. The reincarnated Joe explains that the lion cub became so unsociable because his parents abandoned him. The girl, not knowing what awaits her, makes up on the fly that she is also an orphan. Her parents abandoned her because they did not have enough food. Anne's words bring Linda to sincere tears. She says that there are no free huts in the village now, and the girl can live with them. Joe gloomily advises the girl not to be sad. They have plenty of food, and his tribe will never abandon their fellow tribesmen. Linda good-naturedly invites Anne to make herself at home. No one will offend her here. The girl, amazed by such a kind attitude, thinks that this place is not so bad. All the children of the werewolf tribe, radiating sincere hospitality, come to meet Anne. The boys look at the girl with interest, noting how tall she is and asking her name. Anne happily basks in the glory. She likes such kind attitude and attention. She decides that this place is simply amazing. Suddenly, a hand with a white flower reaches out to the girl from the side, and a shy voice says that this is especially for her. Anne turns to see adorable twins Kat and Lori, who enthusiastically welcome her to the werewolf tribe. The girls gossip about Sean fainting again and tell the girl that the wolf cub can't stand being touched. The twins ask Anne if she has already seen a white lion cub with a sour expression and advise her to stay away from him because he is not like them. Immediately, other children pick up that white lions are strange and can curse. Anne is confused and thinks that now it's clear why Dan is so lonely. It's all because of superstitions. The children say that they have an elder in their tribe, the kindest and most amazing werewolf, and also just a beauty. The werewolves say that the elder, with the help of fire, taught everyone how to cook delicious food and also taught them how to dry meat. And now they have a lot of food in winter. Anne thinks that the elder is familiar with human customs. Maybe she knows something. We need to meet her. Suddenly, they shout with delight that the elder has come. Anne is impatient to look at the wonderful beauty. Amanda invites the girl to take a walk around the village and says that the territory is divided into 3 sectors. Hunting grounds and logistics are the most important. Most of them belong to the males. In the next sector, they are preparing supplies. Later, the girl will be able to come there and help. Pointing towards the dark, gloomy forest, Amanda says that there is a 3rd sector there. But this is a restricted area and you should not go there. Suddenly, the elder hears a squeak and says that she needs to go, and Anne can continue walking on her own. The girl watches the elder go towards the forbidden zone and realizes that all this looks very strange. Anne decides to check on the wolf cub and asks a passing girl if she can tell her where Sean lives. The girl looks at Anne warily and asks if they are the strange stranger whom Joe brought to the tribe. Suddenly, the girl takes out a whip, swings it with all her might, and is clearly about to attack the frightened Anne. Sean, who appeared from the bushes, covers the girl with his body, demanding that Kayla calm down and remove the whip. Kayla angrily says that it was because of Anne that Sean lost consciousness, and she will teach a lesson to anyone who offends the wolf. Anne, out of fear, grabs Sean's hand and tries to justify herself that she did not know about the wolf cub's reaction to touch and did not want such an outcome. Kayla watches in surprise as Anne holds Sean's hand and asks why the boy isn't fainting now. Sean looks at the girl's hand in amazement, and Anne says that for some reason her touch does not have a negative effect on the boy. Kayla jumps up in horror. Since the boy has no reaction, it means he has a very close relationship with the stranger. Sean's girlfriend runs away in tears. Anne breathes a sigh of relief, and the boy asks if she's okay. Deciding that Kayla could have injured the girl with a whip, the wolf cub wants to take her to a healer. Suddenly, on one of the bushes, the girl notices a piece of bloody fabric. Anne tells Sean about her discovery, but the boy replies that pieces of fabric torn off during a fight are normal and nothing to worry about. Anne turns around and thinks with alarm that the fabric seems strangely familiar to her. In the bushes, Dan licks his wounded hand and is relieved that the girl and Sean are finally gone. The lion cub goes to the house. The children around notice that he is wounded, but no one comes close to the boy. Dan recalls with bitterness that from the moment he was born, everyone considered him a monster because of his white hair. The elder of the tribe told his mother that the boy was cursed by God, and the entire tribe was awaiting destruction. To appease God, the boy must be expelled. The lion cub's parents had no choice, and one day they took him to an abandoned cave and left. and the boy clearly understood that he should not have been born at all. Hiding in one of the huts, Dan cries, mutters that he doesn't want to see anyone and hates everyone. But suddenly, Anne enters the hut and notices bloodstains on the floor. The girl happily says that she has been looking for Dan for a long time and wants to help him. The girl hands Dan a piece of paper and joyfully says that with the help of a secret recipe and the sheet, she will stop his bleeding. Anne laughingly says that she constantly falls, and her grandmother always stops her bleeding this way. Dan ironically says that according to rumors in the tribe, if a girl touches the blood of a white tiger, she will be cursed. Anne starts laughing and says that she doesn't believe in this nonsense, and she really, really likes the boy himself. Dan can't believe his ears. Since childhood, he's been used to people avoiding him. Anne strokes the boy's hair and can't tear herself away from him. For some reason, werewolves make her want to constantly squeeze them. The children, having learned that Anne helped Dan, decide that she may now be cursed and they should not approach her. The twins, sitting in the bushes, tell Anne that they still like her, but now they are afraid of being cursed. The girl recalls that the elder was also very frightened when she saw how Anne stopped the lion cub's bleeding. The girl decides that if everyone now avoids her, then no one will stop her from looking into the forbidden place. Suddenly, the girl hears a strange rustling behind her and gets very scared. Sean sneaks up and says that she shouldn't be here, but Anne says that only here no one sees her and says that she is cursed. The wolf cub gently says that it is not the girl's fault. Werewolves always think only about themselves and are constantly afraid of something. Anne is surprised. For the first time she hears so many words at once from Sean. It turns out that he has everything in order with his vocabulary. Suddenly, the girl asks the wolf cub if he is afraid of becoming a loser. Sean indifferently replies that he has no such thoughts. The boy remembers his lonely days spent in the cave and tells the girl that it will not be easy for her alone, which is why he is here. Hearing an incomprehensible noise in the distance, Anne says that she will go check what's wrong. The wolf cub decides to go with her. Barely keeping up with the werewolf, Anne is glad that they have finally reached the place because she no longer has the strength to run. Suddenly, the girl again hears some strange sound that previously attracted her attention and suddenly gets scared. Entering the cave, the children are amazed to see an elder performing some strange ritual over a girl lying on the floor. Noticing the guests, the elder calmly explains that her beloved is sick and Amanda must return to the real world to take her to the hospital. The elder says that he knows that Anne is also not from this world and invites the girl to go with them. Amanda sees the girl's hesitation and says that she can stay here, but then the chance will be lost because the teleport can only be used once. Suddenly, an excited Dan runs into the cave and asks Anne if she really wants to leave. The girl doesn't understand where the lion cub came from, and Sean says that he's obviously been watching them all this time. Dan responds passionately that he saw the girl going into the forbidden area and was afraid that she might harm the tribe. With ostentatious indifference, the lion cub says that if the girl wants to leave, then let her just leave. He doesn't care about that. Sean sadly says that he won't stop the girl either. She should return home. Amanda laughs and says that Anne can stay. Her two friends clearly don't want to let her go. Anne says that the boys are still small. When they grow up, they will understand that the golden nest is not as good as their own kennel. The girl grabs Amanda's hand with a strong desire to return home to her real life. The girl flies through time and space and eventually lands on her bed. Anne is happy to be home. She happily hugs her pillow and realizes how much she misses her usual comfort. But without even having time to breathe, the girl is lifted into the air and again twisted into a spatial whirlpool. Anne falls very quickly and hits the ground with all her might. The girl looks at the symbols on the floor in amazement and realizes that this place is very familiar to her. Has she really returned to the primeval forest again? Suddenly, a huge white lion appears next to Anne and calls the girl by name. The lion takes human form, and the matured Dan, with tears in his eyes, says that he had a presentiment of Anne's return. The young man hugs the girl, presses her to him with all his strength, and says that no matter what the girl becomes, he will always recognize her. The young man admits that throughout the 10 years that have passed since the girl's disappearance, he could not forgive himself for letting her go. Lev looks deeply into Anne's eyes and says that this time he will never let her go. Suddenly, the young man kisses the girl passionately, and she realizes in amazement that this is not how she imagined her first kiss. The young man continues to kiss the girl and passionately whispers that Anne should be his. Suddenly, an angry voice is heard from the entrance of the cave, which orders Dan to take his hands off the girl. Turning around, the girl sees a magnificent young brunette, who still angrily demands that the lion step aside. The brunette stands between Dan and Anne and shouts that the lion himself does not understand what he has done. Two guys are ready to grapple with each other, figuring out who will own the girl. Anne, sitting on the sidelines, understands that obviously they are not going to ask her opinion here. Suddenly, werewolves enter the cave and shout that the tribe is saved because the messenger of the gods has finally appeared. Anne wonders if everyone really decided that she would save the sick and wounded just because she appeared in the forbidden zone. One of the tribe runs up to the girl. Her whole face is affected by an unknown disease and begs to save her. Old Joe asks Anne to try to take the girl by the hand and say certain words. Anne obediently does everything the werewolf said, and suddenly, a wonderful glow appears around the girl's hands. The sick girl looks at her hands in bewilderment and says that she feels surprisingly well. Anne is amazed that she can actually heal others with just her touch. Suddenly, Joe runs out of the cave with a wild cry and shouts with joy that the tribe is now saved. Sean examines the girl's injured leg and warmly welcomes her back to the tribe. The girl can't take her eyes off the wolf. He has become so handsome over the past 10 years. Dan immediately appears in front of Anne, admits that he acted recklessly with the kiss, and asks if the girl is angry with him. Anne annoyedly replies that she will forgive the guy as an old acquaintance, but convincingly asks him not to do that again. Suddenly, Dan again hugs the girl tightly to himself and asks her to admit that she liked it herself. The guy pulls the girl towards the exit. She giggles stupidly and offers to return to the village and talk about everything there. Coming out of the cave, the girl is amazed to see the gathered werewolves who greet her and shout that she is the messenger of the god of animals. Dan grabs Anne in his arms and says that since she is a messenger of God, he simply must take her to the tribe. Sean looks longingly after the young people, realizing that he is too modest to behave so openly. Joe, who met the girl, says that from the very beginning he knew about the girl's peculiarity and invites her to choose any man. Young, handsome werewolves begin to show themselves in all their glory. Everyone hopes that the girl will choose him. Anne is confused as to how she can make a choice if all the werewolves are so handsome. Dan hugs the girl and angrily says that the guys don't have to try. The messenger has already chosen him. One of the handsome men states that a woman cannot have only one partner, so everyone has a chance. Joe laughs and says that Dan has been waiting for Anne for 10 years, and if the girl chooses someone else, it will be unfair. Suddenly, Anne thinks that after returning to the tribe, she never saw Sean. Taking the girl to his home, Dan boastfully says that in addition to delicious food, he hunts well, can build houses, and sew clothes. The guy admits that he only needs Anne and he can really make her happy. The girl is embarrassed by Dan's pressure. She is lost and does not know what to answer him. Suddenly, a girl runs into the hut and begs the messenger to help. Once in the infirmary, Anne sees sick werewolves and learns that the disease spreads quickly and the drugs only slow it down, but do not cure it. Joe says that several tribes are in serious condition. The god of animals did not protect the tribe of werewolves, and they have already lost many. Joe bows to Anne and says that their prayers have been answered. A messenger has appeared, and he is begging her to help. The girl is amazed by what happened and promises to do everything in her power. Healthy werewolves gather in the clearing, offer prayers, and praise the messenger. Suddenly, the girl feels dizzy. She leans on Dan and doesn't want others to see her weakness. Anne realizes that she is very tired and asks the lion to take her to the hut. Dan picks up the girl in his arms and announces that the messenger is tired and will continue tomorrow. At the cabin, Dan tells Joe that Anne's weakness is due to energy depletion and she needs to rest. Joe agrees that the others don't need to know. The guy takes the girl by the hand and tenderly says that he will take care of her. Sean, who brought gifts for the girl, stands at the door and listens carefully to the conversation. 3 hours later, Anne finally wakes up and tries to come to her senses. Dan calms the girl down, says that not much time has passed, hands her a cup of medicine, and offers her a drink. Hearing that Dan himself had prepared the medicine, the girl choked and spat out all the drink in the guy's face. The girl is very embarrassed. She wipes the young man and makes excuses that the medicine cannot be taken. The girl strokes the guy's chest and can't stop. These touches cause strange sensations in her. Dan suddenly stands up and turns away abruptly, muttering that he will go take another dose of the medicine. The glances of the young people meet, and they cannot tear themselves away from each other. None of them have ever experienced anything like this. Suddenly, Dan presses Anne to the ground. The girl is frightened by his pressure and has little understanding of how she should react to what is happening. Anne is frightened by such closeness. Never before has a man touched her so openly. Dan tenderly kisses the girl and remarks that since they are now a couple, why not enjoy this closeness? Obeying some kind of internal protest, the girl instinctively bends her knee, and Dan begins to howl in pain. At this moment, Kayla enters the hut, is embarrassed by the opening picture and coughs delicately. Anne runs up to the girl with relief and says that despite past disagreements, she is very glad to see her. Kayla says that the witch doctor is calling Anne. The young people leave the hut and stumble upon a bundle of gifts. Kayla notes that this is very much like Sean, but even so, he still won't admit it. Anne clutches the gifts to her chest with trepidation and thinks that Sean has always been very kind to her. Joe says that for some people who have recovered, the disease returns again, despite the fact that they had no contact with the sick and did nothing but hunt. Anne thoughtfully asks if the sick people ate the same food. If the disease is not transmitted by airborne droplets, then it's all in the food. Joe orders Dan to take someone with him and check if everything is okay with the food. Sean's brother turns to the girl and asks if he and Dan took an oath. The girl is puzzled, does not understand what we are talking about, and asks what kind of oath this is. Werewolves undergo a fire ritual, receive the blessing of the god of beasts, and enter into an alliance, after which the couple feels each other's emotions and can give birth. Anne laughs sheepishly and says that she is too young to think about marriage. Dan and Sean arrive and report that they found a deer with a strange red rash on its belly. Lev reports that there were many dried red fruits scattered near the stream, which the deer ate. Anne thoughtfully says that if red fruits are the cause of everything, then this epidemic is not a natural disaster. Joe says that perhaps this is a provocation from a neighboring hostile tribe. They need to report this to the elder. Sean volunteers to go first. Anne catches up with the guy and thanks him for leaving a bundle of gifts. The wolf, as expected, denies everything. Dan intervenes in the conversation and, distracting the girl's attention, says that he injured his hand. The girl, understanding the whole situation, laughingly says that such a scratch will heal on its own. Sean, not wanting to watch the couple, leaves, but Anne calls out to him. Dan jealously asks the girl if one lion is really not enough for her. The girl replies, rather irritably, that there are no such thing as too many handsome men. Anne understands that Dan needs another couple. He needs to deal with the epidemic as quickly as possible and look for a way to return home. Dan decisively says that despite the girl's words, he will do everything possible to remain the only one in her heart. The guy seriously tells the girl that he respects her wishes, and if the girl wants to be with someone else, then the lion will not mind. Having heard from Dan that Anne can mate with whomever she wants, the girl is speechless and does not know what to tell him. The girl runs away in irritation, and Dan laughs and thinks that being tactless is very cute. Sitting at the table, representatives of the tribe wonder which of the neighboring tribes could have done this. The healer says that they are all tribes of the same race, and besides, winter is approaching, and there is no point in making enemies. Joe reflects that they only have a conflict with the lion tribe, since at one time they accepted the rejected Dan. Anne carefully asks the lion if everything is okay. The guy carefreely replies that everything is fine. Dan says that only the four of them, Sean and the patrol squad, know about the berries. Anne reasons that if they can't find anyone, it means someone leaked the information, and in that case they can pull off the empty city trick. The werewolves returning from the hunt look in surprise at the deserted village and do not understand what happened to the tribe. The girls say with fear that apparently the messenger failed and the epidemic is out of control. The girlfriends say that the white lion took the squad away. Everyone needs to get ready to leave this place. They will go on reconnaissance, and the rest are better off staying in the forest for now. Tim hides behind a tree and thinks that today and tomorrow it will be possible to attack the remaining werewolves. The healer states that he did not think that there would be rebels in the patrol detachment. Sean considers himself to blame for what happened. Anne resolutely declares that now it is clear who their enemy is. All that remains is to bring them to light. Suddenly, one of the girls grabs Anne, puts a knife to her throat, and demands everyone to move away. Anne asks why the girl is doing this. She replies that Tim is not to blame for anything. She doesn't want to hurt the messenger. She just needs to leave. The guys understand that they can't let the girl go. Otherwise, they will lose everything. The girl screams in tears that she just wants to save Tim and begs him to let her leave. Sean angrily demands that the girl let Anne go, because if it weren't for her, everyone would have died from the disease long ago. The girl retreats to the exit, but at some point, Anne trips over a stone and falls, dragging the traitor with her. A powerful roar is heard, and a large black wolf jumps towards the girls. Sean presses the girl to the ground with his paws, but according to the laws of the pack, he cannot punish the female. While falling, Anne hit herself quite hard and was unable to get up for some time, experiencing severe discomfort. Sean runs up to Anne, asks if everything is okay with her. The girl pats the guy on the head and warmly thanks the wolf for saving her. Suddenly, Sean blushes deeply. Anne jumps back in fear, remembering the guy's peculiarity. The guy says that he has learned to control his emotions and no longer faints. Unexpectedly, even for herself, Anne asks if she can touch the guy's ears in this case. The girl strokes the guy with delight, and the wolf thinks that, in fact, only his mate can touch his ears. Pete, the elder brother of the Lion Tribe elder, angrily says that there will be no mercy for the weaklings who fail the task. The elder's son, Adam, carefully notes that his father asked not to overdo it. Pete states that his little brother is too cautious and only became like that because he let Dan go. Young men from the Lion Tribe threaten the captured werewolves, promising that their death will not be easy. Adam grinningly tells Tim that he is here specifically to deal with him. Suddenly, Adam accidentally touches the rope with his foot. The trap opens and Tim manages to escape. The son of the elder of the Lion Tribe finds himself trapped and ridiculed by his enemies. Anne and Dan walk through the forest, heading to the place of punishment for traitors. The werewolves who meet the messengers say that the traitor poisoned his brothers and deserves death. Suddenly, the girl notices a red rash on Adam's body. The guy also became infected with the disease that their tribe infected the werewolves with. The girl wants to help treat her enemies, but the healer asks Anne to take care of Dan because the matter concerns his former tribe. The girl takes the lion away from his former tribesmen and offers to examine the other prisoners. Examining the rest of the prisoners, the girl notices that they all have the same strange rash. Anne sadly realizes that the Lion Tribe deliberately spread its epidemic to other tribes in order to seize other people's resources. Dan extends his hand and invites the girl to return back to the village. The lion watching from behind the trees understands that if the epidemic is true, then his father can still be saved. At night, a lion hangs over a sleeping girl and is about to kidnap her. Anne deftly throws a trap on the lion and asks him not to make any noise. Otherwise, all the werewolves will come running. Adam appears in front of the girl in human form and demands to let him go. Anne ironically notices that she has caught another little lion and asks why the young man wanted to kidnap her. Adam self-confidently declares that they can do anything to him, but he will not betray his tribe. Anne runs her hand over the young man's lips and says that there are many ways to make a lion talk. Suddenly, the girl starts kissing Adam's neck. The guy, very embarrassed, shouts for her to stop. Suddenly, Dan enters the hut and asks in bewilderment what the girl is doing. Anne puts on an innocent face and states that she is only interrogating the enemy. Dan says he doesn't mind. But for games like this, it's worth finding someone not as small and useless as Adam. The young man angrily says that he has an important mission. He must deliver a messenger to the clan so that she can cure his father. Adam admits that his Uncle Pete spread the infection throughout all the tribes in order to later find a cure and, as a savior, take the post of leader of the tribe. The girl thoughtfully says that she can help the Lion Tribe, but then Dan will have to become the leader. Adam looks at the young people and categorically declares that this is simply impossible. Anne notes that their tribe is infected, and the werewolves have the chief's son captive, so it is unlikely that he will be able to refuse them. Sean sadly thinks that he doesn't want to touch anyone except Anne, but he can't touch her either. The next morning, Anne lines everyone up and inspects everyone in the tribe. Many werewolves are infected, but the girl tries to help everyone. Each time, it becomes faster to treat werewolves, and Anne is happy to think that her abilities are growing. Adam approaches Dan and says that his father wants to see a white lion. Sam, the elder of the lion tribe, greets Dan and says that they have finally met. The chief sadly admits that he regrets not stopping his tribesmen many years ago. The white lion indifferently says that everything happened for the better. He has his own wonderful tribe. Sam says in surprise that if Dan wants to become the leader of their tribe, he must return. The guy indifferently replies that he only wants to be with Anne. Meanwhile, the messenger enters Sean's hut with a treat and calls the guy. But the young man, in the guise of a wolf, jumps out through the window and runs into the forest. Anne tries to catch up with him. The girl stumbles and falls. Noticing this, the wolf runs up to her and asks if the girl was hurt. Anne immediately jumps up, hugs the werewolf, and slyly says that she deceived him. The wolf rushes at the girl, throws her to the ground, and begins to lick her. But suddenly, Sean stops himself, moves away from the girl, and runs into the forest. Kayla approaches the girl and asks with contempt if Anne is going to catch up with Sean. The messenger notices that her hand is sticky, shakes it, and asks in bewilderment what happened to the wolf. Kayla indifferently notes that the girl only provoked the wolf into heat, and now he has no choice but to die. Anne, horrified, asks what to do now because she can't leave Sean alone. Kayla takes the messenger by the hand and says that they need to find the guy, and Anne can help him with her strength. The girl walks across the lawn in the hope of finding Sean, but the wolf stubbornly hides in the bushes. In the end, Anne finds the guy, rushes into his arms, and asks why he runs away every time. The girl looks into Sean's eyes and carefully asks whether he needs to be treated or if everything is fine. But instead of answering, the wolf leans over to the girl and begins to kiss her tenderly, begging her to give him tenderness at least once. Dan approaches Anne's hut, knocks on the door for a long time, and without waiting for an answer, decides that the girl is sleeping. Meanwhile, in the forest, Sean presses the girl to a tree. He does not intend to miss his chance and let Anne go. For some time, the messenger tries to resist, but then the feelings she feels for the wolf take over and she gives up. Sometime later, Anne wakes up in Sean's bed and at first tries to remember what happened. The girl embarrassedly pulls the blanket over her face and wonders how the treatment could end like this. Suddenly, the girl experiences severe pain in her lower back, and Sean wakes up from her scream. Sean holds the healing ointment that the healer gave him and says that now it's his turn to do the healing. Anne tries to refuse help, citing the fact that she does not want to cause unnecessary trouble for the guy. Suddenly, Sean declares that he wants to thank Anne because in a few days they will be married. The girl at first takes the guy's words as a joke and starts laughing, but Sean remains serious. Anne is furious about how they will get married and whether anyone will ask her or not. The girl's back hurts again, and the wolf feels guilty for the bruises on her lower back. Sean says that if a girl is afraid of pain, she can hold the guy's tail as a distraction. Anne cannot refuse such an offer, and why does she have such a strange craving for touching? Suddenly, the girl tells Sean that if he doesn't like her, then they can pretend that nothing happened. They don't have to get married at all. The wolf admits that he really likes the girl, even though Dan has clearly expressed his sympathy too. Sean brings his face closer to Anne, and the girl thinks that she simply cannot reject the feelings of such a wonderful man. Suddenly, the door begins to shake from Dan's thunderous blows, and the guy shouts that he'll come in now. The lion looks at the wolf angrily, asks what he is doing here and where Anne is. The wolf calmly replies that the girl needs to rest, and the lion needs to leave. Then Dan senses Anne's scent coming from Sean. He pushes the guy aside and enters the room. The girl, embarrassed, tells Dan that Sean hasn't been feeling well in recent days, and she should have helped him. The lion shouts in rage that the wolf cannot feel bad. He is pretending as always. Anne presses her hand to her head, says that she feels disgusting, asks the guys to be quiet and give her a rest. The guys immediately stop arguing and anxiously ask what happened to her. Anne says she just needs some rest and the guys should follow her lead. Dan sighs sadly, turns away, and with his shoulders slumped, leaves the room. Lev leaves the hut and on the threshold runs into Kayla, who is carrying some kind of large box. The girl notices the sad look of the guy. Kayla comes into the hut, points to the box, and says that she came to apologize for her little deception. The girl winks and says that her partner made the best bedspread from animal skins. This is a wedding gift. The young people are embarrassed. Anne thanks the girl and says that they are in no hurry to get married. Kayla says that a wedding is a mandatory ritual. Whoever does not receive the blessing of the god of animals will end badly. Anne looks at Sean thoughtfully and asks if he really wants to get married that badly. The wolf replies that after the wedding and receiving the blessing, they will be happy forever. Walking past the girls, Anne overhears them discussing how Dan will lead the winter hunt this year. The girl is perplexed that the lion did not tell her anything about going hunting. Arriving at the farewell ceremony, the messenger sees that Dan is surrounded by the twins Kat and Lori and very ambiguously escorting him on his way. Anne, upset, invites Sean to leave quietly so as not to disturb the lovebirds saying goodbye. The wolf accompanies the girl to the door of the hut and wishes her good night. The girl tenderly says goodbye in return. Suddenly, Anne hears a wild crash and watches in horror as her hut collapses to the ground. Hidden in the bushes, Kayla excitedly tells her partner that she has amazing demolition skills and hopes Sean doesn't miss the opportunity. Having brought the messenger to him, the wolf says that tomorrow he will find someone who will build a new house for the girl. Seeing the guy leaving, Anne fearfully asks where he is. Sean proudly replies that he will guard her outside. The girl says that it is very cold today, and she will be scared to sleep alone. Suddenly, Anne, like a little girl, admits that she wants to sleep cuddled with a ponytail. Sometime later, the girl realizes that she is unlikely to be able to sleep next to Sean. Hand in hand, Sean and Anne listen to the words of the wedding ceremony performed by the tribe's medicine man. The healer says that from now on the couple will be together both in this life and in the next. Only the male can change his mind. According to the ritual, young people need to feed each other in order to share joy and sadness. After a while, the healer solemnly congratulates Anne and Sean and says that now, with the blessing of the god of animals, they have become a couple. Joe and Linda stand nearby and, with tears in their eyes, remember their wedding ceremony. Suddenly, Anne says that she seems to feel Sean's emotions. The guy replies that he also feels how happy the girl is. The girl gently takes her partner's arm and asks him to carry her home because she is tired. Joe says that as soon as Dan finds out about the ceremony, he will cry his eyes out. Linda notices that Anne and Sean are surprisingly suitable for each other. Dan had been watching the ceremony all this time. Sitting in the bushes, the guy was simply furious that Anne had married someone else. 4 days ago, the lion tried his best to become the best partner, did not stop in front of any beast. The guy wanted to bring home as much fur and food as possible so that Anne would finally forget about Sean, but she didn't wait for him. Anne is going to go check if the werewolves wounded by the beast have stopped bleeding. Dan and Sean simultaneously hand the tired girl handkerchiefs and offer to wipe off her sweat. The girl feels guilty before the lion, so she gratefully takes the handkerchief from him. Dan does not give up hope that his beloved girl will return to him. Anne turns to Sean, hands him the lion scarf, and asks him to help him clean up. Wandering through the forest, the girl collects fruit to help the tribe prepare supplies for the winter. Suddenly, Dan calls out to the girl, points to a huge pile of apples, and says that he collected them for her. Anne points to the huge pile of apples and says that her husband has already taken care of it. Dan is frustrated. No matter what he does, Sean is always several steps ahead of him. Sean is dragged away by his fellow tribesmen. He warns his wife that his name is from the group of hunters, but he will return soon. Hearing that the wolf has left, Dan decides to take the chance for Anne to finally notice him. Lev approaches the girl and asks if she needs anything for work. He has everything, but Anne replies that she has enough hands. Leaving the cave, the guy cries bitterly. He was once again rejected, but he still will not give up his attempts. Anne walks through the forest, sniffing the smells of herbs, and doesn't know if she can find what she needs based on such a faint aroma. Suddenly, in the bushes, the girl hears strange sounds and sees Kayla and her partner kissing passionately. The girl is embarrassed and surprised. It is the first time she sees two girls kissing. In the evening, Anne lies in Sean's arms, but her mind keeps returning to what she saw in the forest. Suddenly, there is a knock on the door, and the girl irritably decides to open the door herself. The The messenger goes out onto the porch and sees that Dan has arrived. In the linen light, he is simply beautiful. The girl shouts to Sean that Kylie has come and they will chat a little on the street. The wolf is a little puzzled. Before, Kylie had no habit of visiting at such a time. Suddenly, the lion presses the girl against the wall of the house and desperately asks why she didn't choose him, why he's not so good. Without waiting for an answer from Anne, Dan leans over and passionately kisses the messenger. For some reason, the girl does not resist. Sean goes out onto the porch and notices with hostility that a white lion is standing there. The guys begin to pull the girl towards each other. Each is sure that Anne will be better with him. Dan desperately asks the girl if she really doesn't need him, and Sean remarks that it's late and everyone should go to bed. The messenger turns to Dan and says that it's really late and he should go home. Tomorrow they can discuss everything. The wolf tells the girl that she is not to blame for anything, and she has the right to choose other men. In the morning, Anne goes into the forest in the hope of meeting Dan and talking to him. Eagles are circling in the sky and discussing that they have finally found the one they need. One of the birds swoops down and grabs Anne. The lion screams in rage for the Eagle clan to release the messenger. Sean is training. One of his brothers runs up to him and excitedly says that Anne was carried away by a clan of eagles. Instantly turning into a wolf, the guy calls his brothers and orders everyone to go to the mountains. From above, the girl watches as Dan desperately tries to catch up with the eagles. Anne begins to kick in the bird's clutches and scream that she has to be released immediately. The bird decides to teach the girl a lesson, opens its claws, and Anne begins to fall with a loud cry. Seeing the fall, the lion runs below, trying to find a convenient place, and shouts to the girl that he will certainly catch her. The eagle deftly picks up the messenger from the very ground and laughingly says that he won't do this next time. Suddenly, a huge white lion jumps from a nearby skaz and grabs the bird right by the wing. The lion does not let go of the bird and growls that he will take Anne at any cost. The girl realizes with horror how dangerous this is. The lion and eagle begin to fall, and then the girl is intercepted by another bird, carried away from the events. Anne, in desperation, reaches out to Dan, realizing that she can't help him. The messenger gradually begins to come to her senses, not understanding what happened and where she is. The girl sees a hand extended towards her with a cup of water and absent-mindedly thanks. Anne looks at the handsome young man in surprise and realizes that he reminds her a lot of someone. The messenger thinks that the man is exactly like the student she admired at the university. The girl angrily pushes away her hand with water and sharply asks who is in front of her and where is Dan. The man introduces himself as Edward, the leader of the Eagle clan, and apologizes for the fact that they had to meet in this way. Anne irritably declares that she is not well both physically and psychologically. How else can you feel after being kidnapped? A young guy runs into the cave and joyfully shouts that the messenger has finally woken up. The young man says that his name is Jasper. He is the younger brother of the chief, and it was he who carried the girl before the lion attacked him. When Anne asks where the lion is, the guy blithely replies that he must have turned into minced meat. The girl gets scared and begins to cry convulsively, which confuses the men. Anne decides to play on the emotions of the men to lower their guard and begins to sob at the top of her voice. The messenger sobs and begs to let her see the lion for the last time. Jasper, in fear, calls his brother for help. Clearing his throat aside, Edward approaches the young people and calmly reports that everything is fine with the white lion. Having suddenly calmed down, Anne coldly asks what the brothers were up to and why they kidnapped her. Edward says that their clan is facing big problems, and after Anne helps them, she will stay and become the clan's benefactor. The girl is amazed at such impudence and asks what will happen to her if she cannot help. The leader says that their tribe did not do this by chance, but if the girl wants to leave, then no one will force her. Seeing Anne running away from the cave, Jasper asks why his brother let her go. It is unlikely that they will be able to kidnap her again. The messenger runs out of the cave and finds herself on the edge of an abyss. Now it's clear why they let her go so easily. Edward comes up and says that Anne can't leave on her own, but not because he's stopping her. The leader calmly explains that if the girl helps them, he will call someone and she will be immediately returned to Earth. Suddenly, an eagle flies up to the cave and shouts that they have caught the wrong girl, that Anne is not the messenger of the beast god. All three, including the girl herself, look at the bird in bewilderment. Edward silently turns away and goes deeper into the cave, leaving Anne and Jasper alone. Turning around, the leader coldly tells his brother that they don't need the girl and orders him to throw her off the cliff. In horror, Anne screams that she is the messenger and can prove it. The girl says that the true messenger can heal, and noticing that Vaude is constantly coughing, offers to cure him. Edward agrees, but Anne says that his brother should move away so as not to interfere. The girl approaches the leader, takes his hands, and says that physical contact is needed for healing. Having received approval, the girl presses her whole body tightly against Edward. The young people stand on the very edge of the abyss, and the girl boldly takes a step back, dragging the leader with her. The couple flies down, and Anne says that if she is destined to fall into the abyss, then the leader will fly with her. Not far from the mountains, werewolves, led by Sean, are scouring the forest and trying to find at least some trace. Suddenly, the guy, tuned into Anne and sensing her emotions, senses the girl's fear. Falling down, Edward asks with a grin if this is how the girl wanted to escape. Anne understands that the land is still far away. If the leader manages to reincarnate, then they have a chance to escape. At the very last moment, Edward manages to turn into an eagle, and slowing down the girl's fall still allows her to fall to the ground. Anne jumps to her feet, runs into the forest, and happily thinks that she has managed to escape and will soon return to her tribe. An hour later, the girl realizes with despair and irritation that she is completely lost. Suddenly, the messenger hears a voice in her head, which notices that Anne can now walk into the twilight forest alone. A voice in my head explains that this is the elder of the tribe, Amanda, who has finally managed to contact the girl. Anne is sincerely glad to hear from Amanda and asks with concern whether she managed to cure her beloved. Having said that everything is fine with his partner, the elder talks about the glitch that caused Anne to return. But if the girl wants to go home, Amanda will help her. The messenger sheepishly admits that she doesn't want to return to real life yet. Amanda laughingly notes that she knows about the lion cub and the wolf cub. If the girl wants it that way, then let her stay. Anne asks if the elder can help her find Dan. He might need help. Amanda says that high technology is now available to her, and after a couple of minutes, she reports that she has found a lion. The elder reports that the guy is in a cave a couple of kilometers from the girl, and he really needs help. Anne calls the lion by name, and he struggles to open his eyes and focus his gaze. After a while, the guy finally comes to his senses and can talk coherently. The girl is happy to see that Dan has fully recovered and her treatment worked. The girl reproachfully asks why the guy jumped off the cliff, because she might not have had time to help him. Lev hugs the girl tightly and says that he is very glad that nothing happened to her. The young man happily accepts the girl's care because he thought that he had become indifferent to her. Anne admits with embarrassment that she was thinking the same thing because the guy was so ostentatiously flirting with the twins. The messenger says that when she saw Dan with the others, she was angry and confused. Lev understands that Anne is simply jealous of him, which means he really is not indifferent to her. The girl admits that for several days she thought only about the guy. Anne thinks that she is not the only woman who wants two men. The guy hugs his beloved, kisses her, and proposes marriage. The girl no longer has the strength to resist the pressure of the lion, and she finally surrenders to the power of her feelings. After some time, the girl looks at the fire and thinks that now she definitely won't be able to return home. Suddenly, the voice of an elder is heard in the girl's head, who suggests getting down to business. Amanda laughs at the girl's embarrassment and says that at the worst possible moment, she disconnected from Anne. After discussing the situation with Amanda, Dan angrily says that he will not let the eagles who kidnapped Anne get away so easily. Suddenly, the elder says that the lion should not rush to conclusions. Maybe it will really be better if the messenger helps them. Amanda, with embarrassment, reveals that she once stole a magic scheme from the Eagle tribe, and now is the time to return the favor. A little taken aback by the elder's confession, Anne and Dan think that there might be some point in helping. The wolf says that first of all, it is necessary to take the girl to the healer so that he can examine her wounds. The girl is trying to convince the guy that everything is fine with her, and they have absolutely no time for this. Dan notices with displeasure that the girl is exhausted. When they return to the tribe, he will fix it. Anne says with a grin that even though the guy called her skinny, she is happy, and that definitely shouldn't change. Amanda is already somewhat tired of listening to the saccharine romantic confessions of the wolf. It's time to get down to business. Suddenly Dan, who does not hear the elder's voice, invites the girl to swim. The wolf picks up Anne in his arms and carefully carries her to the pond. The elder and her beloved look at the young people with tenderness. Once upon a time, they were the same. At this time, Sean is overwhelmed with anxiety and desperately asks out loud where Anne is. Edward coughs strangely in his cave and thinks that he still won't give up and will get to the messenger. Dan doesn't let go of the girl's embrace for a second, and at some point Anne can't stand it and says that it's time for them to get out of the water. Seeing that the girl is angry, the lion uses a forbidden technique and invites her to touch his ears. After some time, the happy couple walks through the forest, heading towards the tribe's village. Suddenly, Anne notices beautiful red berries, but the lion warns that they are poisonous. The girl really wants to take a closer look at the berries. The guy agrees to pick them, but on the condition that she does not eat them. Suddenly, a black wolf jumps out of the bushes and calls the girl by name. Turning sharply, Anne happily recognizes Sean and runs towards him. The guy transforms, examines the girl from all sides, and asks if everything is okay with her. The guy anxiously says that one way or another, the girl needs to see a healer. The lion coming up from behind says that this is not at all necessary because he has already taken care of Anne. Deciding to play all his cards, Dan smugly says that Anne has agreed to marry him upon returning to the village. Sean lovingly hugs the girl and says that his only desire is for Anne to be safe and happy. Dan, stung by the lack of attention to himself, stands between the young people and says that he knows about Sean's plans. Anne clutches her head in despair and invites the guys to return to this conversation a little later. Suddenly, the girl notices mushrooms in the grass and happily gets ready to pick them for dinner. The lion declares that the strongest male should do such things and takes out the bag. Sean takes the form of a wolf, notices that it is already dark, and asks Anne for permission to take her to the village as soon as possible. The girl sits on the wolf and turns to Dan and asks him to pick as many mushrooms as possible. Edward coughs and tells Jared that the situation in the tribe is getting worse, and if action is not taken, the tribe will die very soon. Jared looks with horror at how his brother's body has changed and says that a normal tribe cannot just leave him in trouble like the werewolves did. Edward confidently says that the werewolves will help because the tribe of eagles is irreplaceable for everyone. The eagles circle over the werewolf village and discuss the safest way for them to get to Anne. The girl is tossing and turning in bed and can't sleep, and Jared is spying on her through the window. The girl hears some noise on the street and quietly asks who is there. The curtain moves aside and Edward appears in front of the girl in all his glory. Without allowing the girl to utter a word, the leader covers her mouth with his hand and says that if she does not scream, he will remove his hand. Edward feels some discomfort coming from Anne and wonders if everything is okay with the girl. The girl irritably remarks that sneaking into a room in the middle of the night is not the most appropriate behavior for a leader. Edward says that his tribe really needs help and asks the messenger to immediately go with him. The girl laughingly asks how Edward is going to pick her up if werewolves are guarding outside. The leader anxiously asks if the werewolves are holding her by force. Besides, he did not come alone and they will be able to help the girl. Sean knocks on the door of the hut. Anne does not open it, and the wolf decides that the girl is already asleep. Dan appears and begins to accuse Sean of secretly sneaking into the girl and not allowing her to rest. Hearing the altercation of werewolves outside the door, Edward covers Anne's mouth with his hand and says that he is aware that the girl is not from this world. Jasper watches the guys squabble and doesn't understand how these two can coexist side by side. Deciding to distract the werewolves, the young man throws a stone into the bushes. The guys turn around at the sound. Smelling a familiar scent, the lion says with a grin that it must be the white-haired hen that caused them problems. Unable to bear such insolence, Jasper jumps out of the bushes and proudly declares that he is from the noble clan of the Golden Eagle. The werewolves hover over the boy and menacingly ask how he dared to sneak into their village. Meanwhile, in the hut, Anne says that everyone in the tribe knows that she is not from this world, so there is no point in threatening to expose her. Suddenly, Edward hugs the girl and whispers that he can bring her home at any time without asking whether she wants it or not. The girl thinks for a few minutes and says that she can help the Eagle tribe, but there must be some benefit for her too. The chief says that being in their tribe is already quite a big advantage. The chief invites Anne to be a messenger to the spring fair, who will be under the tutelage of the 4 clans and will divide the profits among the tribes. The messenger agrees and says that she needs to find a reason for her absence and somehow explain the appearance of eagles in the village. Edward is not a supporter of unnecessary lies and invites the girl to tell it like it is. Dan knocks insistently on the door and asks if Anne is okay. The girl opens the door and assures the guy that everything is fine with her. Dan does not leave. He smelled a foreign smell and asks the messenger who else is in the hut. The girl says that Edward felt bad at night. Jasper got scared and came to her for help, and the girl had already managed to make a profitable deal. The lion tries his best to control himself and politely greets the chief of the Eagle clan. A moment later, the guy yells that this impudent eagle has already kidnapped Anne, and now he dared to break into her house and ask for help. The girl tries to calm Dan down, saying that if he does something to the leader, it will be more difficult for her to treat him. Lev takes everything personally and says that they just confessed their feelings to each other, and the girl already has a new admirer. Edward looks at the couple with affection and notices that the messenger's partner is very jealous. But this is not a quality that a good man should have. Anne is tired of dealing with men and tells Edward that she agrees with his words, but now he has no place in her hut. The messenger tells the leader to get ready and leave, otherwise tomorrow he may no longer see his brother. Edward calmly expresses his hope that the girl will honor their agreement. Having reincarnated and preparing to fly away, the leader finally advises the girl to change her partner. Dan explodes with rage, but Anne calms him down and tells him not to pay attention. Many eagles circle in the sky above the rocks and create a bizarre pattern. Approaching the rocks, Anne looks at the sky in fascination and asks her companions what it means. Dan looks thoughtfully into the sky and says that this is a welcoming ceremony from the Eagle tribe. Jasper comes down to the young people and tells the girl that he will carry her to the cave. Suddenly, the guy notices that not only the messenger has climbed onto him, but also 2 werewolves. The guys explain that firstly, they cannot fly, and secondly, they will not leave Anne alone in a strange tribe. Jasper, without hesitation, shakes himself sharply and both werewolves fly down screaming. In the cave, Edward looks very bad. His illness leaves him almost no chance. Seeing the leader, Anne feels acute pity and hopes that she made it in time and can help the man. Jasper approaches and anxiously explains to the girl that his brother's illness has caused him to become alienated. The young man says that their tribe is the guardians of the citadel, but several years ago, the power of the totem, which gives them vitality, weakened. Anne is perplexed. How can the totem's strength run out? How can this happen? The girl understands that the matter is very serious. Jasper hopefully asks if she knows anything about it. Anne assures the young man that she knows her business and will try her best to help his brother and the entire tribe. Jasper touchingly takes the girl by the hands and says that he believes her and entrusts his elder brother to her. She truly deserves to become a mate to the leader of the tribe. Anne assures the boy that she is helping for completely different reasons and that this topic is not interesting to her. Deciding not to waste time, Jasper says that if his brother is not interested in the girl, then he will gladly offer himself to her. Anne pushes the guy off the cliff with a powerful jerk and screams at him not to interfere with her treatment. The girl shows Edward a drawing on a rock and says that he needs to sit in the same position. Anne says that after the leader takes the desired position, he needs to say certain words 3 times. Edward says that he doesn't quite understand the drawing. Could the girl herself show you how to do it correctly? Anne, not suspecting a catch, takes the desired pose and says that there is nothing complicated about it. Seeing the expression on Edward's face, the girl realizes that he is simply mocking her. The leader, laughing, asks for forgiveness for his little deception and seriously asks what he should do next. Anne says that this pose and words will help the man relax his muscles, and then she will begin to heal. The girl explains that she will try to act as a totem that can stop the alienation, and the leader needs to try to suppress this in himself. Suddenly, Edward is overcome by another coughing fit, which seems much stronger than the previous ones. The messenger explains that this is how it should be, which means the healing process is starting. After some time, the cave is illuminated with golden light and stunningly beautiful wings appear behind Edward's back. The girl watches with delight the metamorphoses taking place and happily realizes that she has succeeded. Edward is relieved to realize that he feels much better and thanks the messenger from the bottom of his heart. Suddenly, the leader hugs Anne with his wings and pulls her towards him, smilingly saying that his wings are beyond his control. The girl examines and feels the wings with interest, and suddenly a feather remains in her hands. Anne is embarrassed, says that she didn't do it on purpose, and asks if she needs to return the pen. Edward allows the girl to keep the feather, but notices that in their tribe, eagles give feathers only to their other halves. Anne turns away in irritation, thinking that she has stepped on the same rake again. Suddenly, the girl notices an eagle flying up on which Sean and Dan are sitting. The guys go into the cave, and the wolf warily invites the girl to return home. Suddenly, Edward falls to his knees, begins to cough forcefully, and his wings disappear. The messenger runs up to the man in fear, does not understand what happened to his wings, and asks how he is feeling. The leader presses himself to Anne's feet and quietly says that these are all the consequences of alienation, and he has not yet fully recovered. The girl decisively declares to her partners that they cannot return now. The Eagles tribe needs help, and she must cure them. The jealous guys can't stand it. Sean pushes Anne aside, and Dan pushes Edward away from her. The werewolves cover the girl, and the lion says that she can heal the eagles, but should not blindly trust them. Anne wearily thinks that there are too many men per square meter at the moment. The leader and his brother stand on the edge of a cliff and discuss the need to arrange a meeting as soon as possible. Jasper asks if his brother was pretending when he said that he was not feeling well. The leader, with a grin, asks what the boy himself thinks about this. The young eagle says thoughtfully that this was most likely part of the plan to leave the messenger with them. The boy naively asks if his brother is really so interested in her. Edward slaps the guy on the head and advises him to keep his mouth shut. In a nearby cave, Dan can't tear himself away from the messenger, covering her body with kisses. The girl indignantly says that they came here to heal the tribe. Leo releases a secret weapon in the form of ears and languidly says that he misses him very much. The next day, Anne treats the eagles, who actually feel better from her touch. Noticing that the girl is so tired that she can barely stand on her feet, Edward picks her up and asks if she is too carried away with the treatment. The leader carefully says that the messenger needs to rest because the treatment takes too much energy. Jasper flies up to the cave and shouts that it's time to take on the wind. Edward explains that when the wind comes, you can receive the blessing of the beast god, but the sick people of the tribe are afraid of being late. Anne asks how long this will take. She wants to try to help everyone in time. The next morning, Anne is delighted to see snow and thinks that she has long dreamed of seeing snow in the mountains. The girl is constantly in a cold cave, and since the necessary herbs cannot be found here, she is sure that she will soon get sick. The brothers observe Anne and discuss how she is very different from all the previous messengers. The fact is that Anne does not want to do anything other than help people. She spends all her time next to the sick. Jasper bluntly states that the girl is so smart, kind, and hardworking, and he wants to make her his partner. In the werewolf village, Sean and Dan are cleaning up the hut and are looking forward to their beloved returning tomorrow. Anne, meanwhile, walks through the snowdrifts with delight, thinking that it snowed for 3 days and created impressive snowdrifts. Edward comes out of the cave. He wants to say that the messenger's things are almost collected, and tomorrow she will be delivered to the village. But the leader does not have time to utter a word because a large snowball flies right into his face. Suddenly, a retaliatory snowball flies at the girl, but not on the side where Edward is standing. Jasper appears from the side and reproachfully asks why he wasn't invited to play in the snow. Young people with carefree enthusiasm begin to throw snow at each other with excitement. Edward, watching from the sidelines, thinks that sometimes it's not bad to feel like little children again. After a while, Edward notices that the girl's hands are frozen, but she shrugs it off and pulls the leader to play with them. Suddenly, Jasper calls Anne and points to a high mountain from which a huge layer of snow begins to melt. Edward grabs the girl in his arms and says that she needs to fly away as soon as possible because there is an avalanche. The reborn Jasper says with embarrassment that he forgot that avalanches were happening in the mountains at this time. The village of the werewolf tribe was completely buried under the snow. Dan is outraged that the Eagle clan did not warn the other clans about the avalanche. Lev fears that the Eagles want to use the situation to keep Anne, but he will not allow this. The guys appear in the cave. Jasper meets them at the entrance and arrogantly says that their clan is not happy with guests. Lev replies that his mate is here, so he does not need an invitation. Sean politely asks for forgiveness for the intrusion. The wolf notices the girl and affectionately says that he missed her very much, and he also brought pillows and spices. The girl hugs her partners, and from the outside it looks very harmonious. Jasper angrily asks Edward why he doesn't throw out the intruders. The leader's younger brother declares that these werewolves disgust him. In the evening, the young people finally find themselves alone in the cave and sincerely enjoy each other without jealousy or misunderstandings. Jasper guards the entrance to the messenger's cave and hears everything that is happening. The guy thinks that the girl is really not like everyone else. In the morning, Anne tells Dan that, like other females, she will go to help remove the rubble. The girl enthusiastically throws herself into work, sorting out the rubble and looking for surviving items. The messenger asks Jasper to help carry heavy pieces of wood. The guy decides that this is a great chance to prove himself as a strong man. The young man approaches one of the clan sisters, who works nearby, and says that it's time for her to get some rest. Suddenly, Anne hears a loud crash and realizes that the surviving beam she is next to is breaking and starting to fall. The messenger manages to push the girl away, and she and Jasper find themselves under the rubble. The young man managed to open his wings at the last moment and protect Anne from strong blows. The frightened girl asks why Jasper didn't fly away. The guy simply replies that he couldn't leave her in trouble. Dan and Sean help clear the rubble. Anne can't stay under it for long. The messenger gently strokes the boy's cheek and says that as soon as they get out, she will immediately cure him. The young man decides to confess to Anne his feelings for her. He is ready to utter the main but such difficult words. Suddenly, the rubble above the young people disappears, and the lion roughly lifts the eagle by its wings, removing it from the girl. Dan begins frantically turning the girl in different directions, noticing that she is covered in scratches. The guy hugs Anne with all his might and asks for forgiveness for not going with her and not being able to protect her. Later, Anne persuades Jasper to lie down and rest. Although she cured him, his bones and muscles will still hurt for some time. The lion and the wolf discuss the situation. Dan passionately says that we need to take the girl out of this nest. Since the day the rubble collapsed, Jasper has been trying in every possible way to catch Anne alone and still confess his feelings. But Dan constantly gets in his way, preventing him from saying a word. One day, the young man collected a wonderful bouquet, brought it for the messenger, and almost began to speak. But then a lion appears and says that he has long known about the reverence of young men for Anne's medical talents. The lion puts his arm around the young eagle's shoulders and tells the girl that he will make a wonderful friend. The messenger shows a package of medicinal herbs and says that they need to find 30 of each type. Jasper comes to Edward, confesses everything, and desperately asks what he should do. The brother says that the boy needs to grow up, but since everything is so serious, this time he will help. One of the Eagle clan calls out to Dan and says that the elder of the tribe wants to see him. At the same time, the girl tells Sean that, by order of the elder, the guy needs to negotiate with the snake tribe. Having gathered with the clan elder, the guys are explained that the tribe of snakes was badly damaged by an avalanche, and they urgently need help to dig out the inhabitants from under the snow. Jasper listens at the entrance to the cave and thinks about how cleverly his brother arranged everything. Left temporarily without rivals, the young man finds winter flowers and diligently prepares the place for the ceremony he has planned. The guy manages to prepare everything, but suddenly realizes that he ate something wrong and urgently needs to leave. A few minutes later, Edward approaches the prepared cave and asks if Anne is there. The leader notices the decorated cave and does not want to believe what his stupid brother is up to. Noticing a suitable messenger, Edward irritably thinks that he needs to somehow get out and help Jasper. The leader tries to take the girl away from the cave, saying that his wing hurt and needs to be examined urgently. Anne wants to return to the cave and inspect the wing as soon as possible, but the man says that he is uncomfortable here and persuades him to go to his cave. Suddenly, the girl still looks at the cave and asks in bewilderment what it all means. Edward tries to explain something to the girl, but she fearfully demands to keep her distance. Suddenly, Anne stumbles and bumps her nose awkwardly into Edward's stomach. The man notices dirt on the girl's cheek, reaches out and gently wipes her cheek. Obeying some incomprehensible impulses, Edward approaches Anne with the clear intention of kissing the girl. Then Jasper appears from the bushes, and with a mixture of horror and bewilderment, asks what is happening here. Anne doesn't understand why she has to make excuses, but still declares that nothing happened here. The guy just didn't understand everything correctly. At this moment, the messenger, as if by the law of meanness, stumbles and begins to fall again. The girl flies straight at Edward, and together they begin to fall into the bushes. In some incomprehensible way, the girl lands on the man and their lips meet in an unexpected kiss. Realizing the absurdity of the situation, Anne tries to explain that Jasper misunderstood everything. There is nothing between her and Edward, and if the guy doesn't believe her, he can ask his brother. The girl turns to the leader, but for some reason he remains thoughtfully silent and blushes. Suddenly, Anne turns to the young man and asks what difference does it make to him, even if there is something between her and his brother. Jasper, with tears in his eyes, says that he really likes Anne, and he never expected his older brother to beat him to it. The girl looks at the guy in bewilderment and confusion. He did not consider him as a man at all. Suddenly, Jasper takes Anne's hands and declares that he is not at all jealous and is ready to be responsible for his brother. The messenger looks at the young man in shock and refuses to believe what she hears. Sean and Dan appear from behind the bushes and suspiciously ask what the young people are doing here. Those who appeared from the Eagle clan realized with horror that what had just happened was nothing less than the beginning of chaos. The messenger is tired of such a stupid situation, waves her hands irritably, and says that everyone understands everything wrong. Jasper takes on a mysterious look and tells Anne that they know everything. The leader's younger brother recalls that when he was sick, the girl constantly brought him fruit. The young man also saw how the messenger secretly took his feathers, and in their clan, this indicates only one thing. Anne explains that according to rumors, the feathers of mountain eagles have a healing effect, and the girl collected them for experiments. Jasper, in despair, reaches out to Anne and says that the girl confessed in a dream that she liked the young man. The messenger tries to explain that she didn't dream about the guy at all, and if she muttered something in her sleep, then in any case it doesn't mean anything. Anne firmly states that she views Jasper as a little brother, and there is nothing more to discuss. Dan tells the girl that she shouldn't let the little eagle chase her. Anne assures the lion that he has no reason to be jealous and kisses him convincingly. Jasper finds no place for himself. He thinks that after everything that happened, he likes Anne even more than before. After much thought, the young man comes to the conclusion that he needs to be more persistent. The next day, the girls are sorting out medicinal herbs, and one of the sisters asks Anne to help her get a pot from the top shelf of the shelf. The messenger is happy to help and begins to climb up. Suddenly, the girl's fingers slip off the shelf, and she realizes that the heavy rack is about to crush her. Suddenly, the shelves stop, and the girl herself is picked up by Edward's strong hand. The leader gently asks Anne if she is hurt. The girl, touched by the concern, replies that everything is fine. The sister of the Eagle clan observes the piquant situation and decides that it is better for her to leave. Anne notices the girl's escape and desperately asks her not to leave. Edward continues to hold the messenger and playfully asks if the girl should at least thank him. Anne breaks free from the leader's hands and confidently goes to the caves, but Edward says that they need to go the other way. Having collected a full basket of plants necessary for treatment, the messenger realizes that it will be too heavy for her to carry it alone. Suddenly, Jasper appears behind the girl and says that he will be happy to help her. The guy throws the basket on his shoulder, says that he is always happy to help a friend, and invites Anne to take a walk in the forest. The couple goes to the stream, and the messenger understands that it will be very difficult to cross it. Jasper, wanting to show Anne his strength and caring nature, grabs the girl across the waist and joyfully says that he will gladly carry her. A little later, Sean asks the girl how her foray into the forest went. Anne admits that Jasper simply harassed her. Edward arrives, says that it has become significantly colder outside, and hands the messenger a blanket. The girl notes with delight that the blanket is made of beautiful velvet. The leader says that such blankets warm better than all others, and this speaks of the sincerity of the giver. Sean thanks the Eagle Tribe chief and says it's time for him and Anne to go. Jasper looks into the messenger's cave and says that because of the snowfall, everyone has been sitting at home for 3 days, and he brought the girl fresh fruit. The girl gratefully accepts the apples and, looking at the half-naked young man, asks if he is cold. Jasper assures that he doesn't feel the cold, and Anne says that it's time for him to go home and they'll talk next time. Noticing that Sean is trying not to show his jealousy, the girl tenderly kisses the guy and assures him that she only needs him. The wolf sadly notices that lately the girl has not been paying him any attention. A day later, one of the sisters looks into the cave and says that the snow has stopped. One couple has decided to arrange a wedding ceremony and invites Anne. The girls go out into the stone circle. Everyone greets the messenger, and the sister asks her to wait a little. Suddenly, Edward lands in front of the girl in beautiful clothes and with gorgeous flowers in his hands and declares 100 Anne their faith and blessing. The man kneels before the messenger and asks her to accept the flowers, but Anne senses something is wrong and refuses. Edward calmly again invites the messenger to accept the bouquet and give it to the priest for sacrifice. Jasper appears behind Anne, also unusually dressed and preparing to play the role of a priest. Having received the flowers, the young man suddenly begins to transform and stunning wings appear behind his back. Edward is proud to note that his brother has finally grown up. He has worked long and hard to achieve what he wants. Anne is surprised to note that the brothers are descendants of the leader. And do they really need to fight for something? Jasper, who appears behind him, angrily announces that he received the rank of priest in a fair clan battle and turns around and walks away. Edward explains that in the clan of Eagles, power is not inherited, and the girl's words offended Jasper somewhat. All night, Anne turns from side to side and cannot fall asleep. She decides that in the morning she will definitely find Jasper and apologize to him. 3 days later, the girl sits eating apples and thinks that the chief's younger brother is just an obnoxious child, hiding and depriving her of the opportunity to apologize. Half an hour later, Edward finds a completely insane Anne and does not understand what happened. Realizing that the girl has eaten too much intoxicating fruit, the man decides to take her to the cave. The girl shamelessly pesters the leader. He tries to explain that the messenger is drunk, but everything is in vain. Deciding to take advantage of the opportunity, Edward asks Anne what she thinks about Jasper. The drunk girl aggressively declares that the boy is just a fool who likes to tease werewolves. Anne waves her arms belligerently and declares that if it weren't for the boy's pretty face, she would have defeated him long ago. The leader provocatively asks who the girl thinks is better, Jasper, Sean, or Dan. The girl decisively declares that Edward is the best and passionately kisses the man. The leader understands that Anne has absolutely no idea what she is doing and is trying in every possible way to dodge. The messenger begins to look at and touch the man's body, which delights her. The girl decisively says that she likes the man so much that she will take him whether he wants it or not. Responding to another passionate kiss, the man realizes that he no longer has the strength to resist.